Hey there, guys. For those of you who are making it into the room here, I will give everyone a second to kind of roll in here before I get started. I know most of you probably have more information, likely than I do, regarding this very, very strange event today. Let me turn off the soft core music here. So, obviously, everyone has heard about the Baltimore Bridge incident that we're looking at right now. Baltimore Key Bridge collapses after ship collision. 6 people remain unaccounted for following the collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. According to officials, 8 people were on the bridge when a cargo ship crashed into it early Tuesday, and 2 of them were saved from the water earlier today. The crew on the ship issued a Mayday call before it collided with the bridge, Maryland Governor Wes Moore said, noting the warning likely saved lives. Not sure about that, unless that halted traffic from being on the bridge. If you did notice, and we'll play some video here in a second, it did look like there was very little traffic on this bridge. However, this was at 1 something a.m. So very unlikely it would have been what you would consider normal rush hour type traffic. The Key Bridge, built in 1970, served as the outermost crossing of the Baltimore Harbor. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, or however you say his name, said it has been part of the skyline of this region for longer than most of us have been alive, so the path to normalcy will not be easy. I would like to also mention as a side note that it took Joe Biden a year to get to Palestine, Ohio, after the train derailment, but it sounds like Biden is going to make a really quick trip over here to Baltimore. Seems kind of like he is choosing the voting bases that he wants to pacify. Nevertheless, we kind of expect that, so I don't think anybody's offended yet or even surprised. So again, guys, welcome those of you who have joined me. I really, more than anything, want to share some facts. And I think I want to get some thought generated here about this incident. I know this is not Second Amendment related. I'm not changing my platform. This is just something that I think is worrisome. We never get all the answers, right? We simply never get all the answers. It doesn't matter at what level and at what type of disaster we are looking at, especially within the United States. We are never going to get all the facts and information that we need to piece a story together properly. So I think we have to just accept that right now, that that's not going to happen. So before I get into what I think are a lot of the facts, I'd like to shout out a bunch of you guys that I don't always get to shout out when we do a premiere, even though we do have a live chat during the beginning of a premiere and during the premiere playing. It's hard for me to type all that in because I'm not a good thumb typer, and I'm usually watching, oh gosh, I don't even know where my phone is, but I'm usually on my phone. I guess my phone's probably out with my son. He's sitting out under an umbrella that I just put up for him. So let me do some shout outs real quick to a bunch of my good friends on here that are following. Mike, thank you for being here, and thank you for being such a great moderator all the time. You do a great job, and I really do appreciate that. Sentinel, good to see you, my friend. If I don't mention your name, it's probably just because I don't recognize it. It doesn't mean that I mean any disrespect. Toby Hatch, thank you for being here. Jason Fisher, always good to see you. Let's see. Kinfolk Buck, I think I recognize the name. T. Smith, I think I recognize that name as well. DJ Dogstar, Robert Keller, O. Frank, S. Michael DeHart, Johnny Threebar, good to see you, bud. Also a great moderator. Thank you for the help. Great gig in the sky. Let's see here. Cassidy Phillips, good to see you, man. Cassidy is here locally, and he's going to be able to relate to some of the information that I pass on here in a second. So again, guys, thank you for being here. Let me get to what, facts we know, and then I'll move on. First of all, I'm showing you a picture of the harbor area, just so you know what you're looking at. I think most of you already know this, but I figured it was worth mentioning anyway, that what we see here is the yellow down below where you see the E, the letter E, and I can't point to it on screen, so I apologize, but where you see the big letter E out in the middle of the water, that is the bridge that we're talking about, right? That's the very large span that we have anything to the, let's call it the northwest of that, that's of course the Baltimore Harbor. So everything you're looking at here is stuff that this ship was actually making its way from there. Now, based on the trajectory of where that vessel was coming from, my guess is, yes, it's a guess, it's not a fact, is that it was likely coming from that Curtis Bay area, unless due to currents and additional power outages that we maybe didn't witness, maybe it had gotten blown to the west side of that bank already. But if you'll remember in the video, which we'll show here in just a second, this thing was making a pretty decent hard right as it came towards the bridge. And you know what? Let's go ahead. I've got a piece of video that I want to play for you guys that is from the, of all things, the Glenn Beck show. Monica Crowley, if you guys probably have seen, thank you very much. So long, Gabe Bowser. I appreciate you, bud. Monica Crowley was on Glenn Beck's show earlier this morning, and she's the one who has shared all this video that everybody is sharing right now. I'm not saying she captured it, but she's the one who initially shared this. So let me find her footage. I want you guys, intellectual iconicalism, Lynn Baker, thank you guys all. This is a pretty interesting video that I'm going to show you guys. Let's see, where is it? From Monica Crowley on Glenn Beck's show this morning. Make sure you guys can see it. And I'm going to play this thing real quick, if you guys don't mind. So let's see here. Yes, and I have to agree with this comment. Expect and prepare for a major grid down scenario in the next 45 to 90 days. Cannot argue with that, bud. Take a look at this. I'm going to get my ugly face off of the screen, and I want you guys to watch this video with me. Stand by.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore Harbor, it's a massive span. And for those of us who live in the Northeast, Glenn, I can tell you I have crossed that bridge many a time, going from New York to Washington and back, right? It is a major, major artery in the Northeast.
Great graphics on screen explaining
And at about 1:30 a.m. Eastern time this morning, a cargo ship was approaching the bridge. And the video that I posted, which is now everywhere on social media, shows
we're watching it right now.
Yes, and it's all over TV as well. It is a massive cargo ship, and it's under a Singapore flag. So the ship itself is registered in Singapore, and you can see in the video that it approaches the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and it loses power, Glenn, twice. Not once, but twice in the moments leading up to its approach to the bridge.
Oh, my gosh.
And so, you can see in the video, it loses power twice. It regains power, but by that moment, Glenn, it's too late, and they can't steer away from one of the massive pilings supporting the bridge, and the cargo ship goes right into the piling, and the entire bridge collapses like a house of cards, just folds in on itself right into Baltimore Harbor.
You know, I noticed, because I watched this video a couple of times after you posted it, and I mean, I couldn't believe it was like toothpicks falling apart. When you first start watching it, you'll see the traffic is pretty steady on the bridge. And thank God, right at the time that it collapses, not a lot of cars, if any, were on the bridge. Do we know if there were cars on the bridge?
Well, thankfully, I mean, if there's any silver lining in this horror show, Glenn, it is 1:30 in the morning. So there was relatively light traffic, and you can see headlights of cars going both ways. And, you know, the moment that the cargo ship hits the bridge, it looks like very few cars, if any, are on the bridge. What we're hearing this morning, pardon me, what we're hearing is that 2 people have already been rescued. God bless. There are at least 7 people missing that we know about. So there is a very active search and rescue going on. The Coast Guard is out there. The National Transportation Safety Board is on site. The Navy is there. Navy divers are in the water and have been now for hours. So we hope and pray that any victims who fell into the water in their automobiles, in their trucks, there's at least one semi that we know of that collapsed into the water with the bridge, Glenn. So we hope and pray that all of these people who were part of this unfortunate accident, and at least now it does look like an accident, and we'll wait for the investigation, but we hope and pray that everybody will be rescued and will be okay.
So, Monica, do we know anything about the ship? Because the first thought is, because the power goes out, then it comes back on, and the poor captain, man, you can see him just trying to turn that ship as fast as he can when the power's on. Then it goes out again. Do we know? My first thought was, is this some sort of some sort of an attack on electronics? Is there?
This is interesting.
Has anybody else thought of that, or is it just me and my sick, twisted paranoia, I guess?
Well, I think that too, Glenn, and we will have to wait for a thorough investigation here in a lot of different areas. There was one report that I saw this morning that indicated that the crew, and apparently there was one pilot and two captains on board, which, and of course, an additional crew, which you would expect for a vessel of this size and magnitude under an international flag, again, Singapore. And there is one report this morning that indicates that the crew alerted the Maryland Department of Transportation when they were leaving the port that they had lost control of the vessel. So, and again, I don't know how reliable this report is, but it's up on the New York Post website this morning. So again, I don't know if that report has been vetted, but most of these vessels now are under electronic control, not unlike some of our voting systems, and might very well be open to hacking by nefarious players here. So again, we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, sometimes the cigar is just a cigar, and accidents unfortunately do happen.
Right. And I hope that's the case, but with all the cyber terror that is predicted, I know we're all on high alert for that.
All right, that's what I want to talk about a little bit, guys, right now, is some of the things that Glenn and Monica just discussed. And let me swap over to this screen here so that we can continue to look at this as it went down. I think this is really important. Okay, so this is, I believe this is going to be the same video that Monica had originally shared. Let me see if it in fact is. No, this is actually comes from her video, but this is not the same video. You see it's got a little bit of dialogue down there to the bottom right. Again, showing 1:24 a.m. They lose their power right there. They're struggling to come back. And I want you to pay particular attention to the smokestack. The ship's lights briefly go on again. Watch as soon as the lights come back on, you're going to start to see a cloud of smoke come out of the smokestacks. And that's where that circle is. See that black cloud of smoke? Remember that for a second. That's leaving a big black cloud of smoke. And I'll tell you why that's relevant in a second. It appearing to veer, if you look at one of the other videos, it's like at this point, this thing was turning straight for what it was about to hit. And this is an interesting piece of video right here. It's showing you the trajectory on that map. And then it collides with this pillar right here. Right there, it looked like it was trying to turn to the left. You'll notice it regained power. And there goes the whole thing. And here we go, obviously, looking at it afterwards. And we'll play this video multiple times. I don't know if I can loop it, but I'll see if I can't get it to play multiple times, because shows a lot of good information right here. You can see how wide the spans were away from one another, apart from each other, how much room this thing had to pass in between those risers that held the bridge up. Let me go back to this. That's not going to loop. So let me change this other video real quick so that I can get, well, I'll leave it on that screen right now. Okay. Couple things I want to point out that I have done today. I live down here in the South Louisiana area, a good 20 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. We have a very busy port here in the Lake Charles area where I live. And not only that, our ship channel that goes out to the Gulf of Mexico from Lake Charles is a major ship channel. This ship channel moves. We have a Phillips 66, a Conoco, a Citgo, PPG, or at least used to have a PPG. It's a different company now. I forget the name of it. Every major petrochemical company out there, have chlorine made in this area, oil products, plastics, anything petrochem wise, they're all made here in the Lake Charles area. So as you can imagine, excuse me, we have a pretty busy ship channel. You'll notice they said earlier that there was one pilot and two captains on there. Let me put a picture of the map up while we talk about this. I think it's worth everyone looking at this map while we discuss, because it does make sense when you start to look at it. Okay, check this map out, and I hope you guys can see that okay. If you'll notice, again, as I mentioned earlier, let me try to get it right. Right over that way, you'll see the letter E. Where that letter E is, that's about where that ship actually hit. This is a map from the port of Baltimore, but where that E is about where the impact was on that column, that riser, that support of that bridge. Of course, you can see it was coming from, if you're looking at it, say 11 o'clock on a clock, as you look at this screen, it would be up in that area. That's where the ship was actually coming from. You saw the containers on it. All right. I spoke to one of our pilots this morning, and I say our pilots, actually a retired pilot. He just retired this past year. I believe he rode or piloted ships up and down the ship channel down here for 30 something years. What a pilot does is you have a captain of the vessel. Like there was a captain of this ship, of this cargo ship. That guy is the one on open waterways, like in the ocean. He's the one who's captaining this. However, when you get into these ship channels in these port areas, usually just offshore, they will send a pilot boat. It's a bigger boat, but all it's doing is transporting a pilot out there. It's not a ship, but it's a big boat, and it can handle rough seas. And they'll drive up to the side of the ship. They'll throw a rope ladder over the side, excuse me, and then these pilots will climb up, and then they will navigate the ship into the port and dock it wherever it's supposed to be docked. The captains stay on the bridge, but the captains are not manning the vessel at that point. The quote pilots are. So when you hear someone say a pilot and a captain were there, that's what their roles are. Technically, they're both captains of a ship, or at least if you want to look at it from a certification standpoint, they're both capable of captaining a ship. But one, that is his job, is to be on that bridge all the time, manning that ship, where the pilot is kind of like a part-time guy, almost like your Uber driver for a ship when you get into a particular ship channel or a port area. So I spoke to one of our longtime pilots down here this morning on the phone, and I asked him his thoughts on this. Well, he wasn't comfortable coming on air because there's still so much speculation going on. He was happy to, he's an old shooting friend of mine. So he was happy to give me a lot of information that he saw and that he noticed. One thing that he noted that made sense to me is, as this ship is coming towards this bridge, you'll notice there's no tugboats. There's no tugs in the water. And like he told me, he said, we have a very big bridge just like this, one that's easy to pass under, but you still have to manage getting between those columns, right? Those supports that hold up the center span where you pass between. And he was a little bit surprised that there were no tugs that followed it out. And if you look at this picture of the port that I'm showing you, there will be tugboats that pass and operate all throughout this little harbor right here, all throughout there. You know, when you have especially one of these larger cargo ships like this coming and going, they don't just drive in and park and then pull out whenever they want to. In many cases, yes, their engines are usually underway, but they have the tugs that are helping them guide, pushing the nose of the ship, pushing the back of the ship. And I'm not using marine terms because I simply don't know them all. Stern, bow, all that kind of stuff. So nevertheless, you've got these tugs that are obviously smaller, but very high powered boats. They're very super strong. They can move these ships, you know, they're a fraction of the size, but they can move them and position them in there. So they're a big source of support to get these things safely in and out. And the man that I spoke to, and I don't want to use his first name, so I'm not going to use his first name, but the guy I spoke to is an old friend of mine. He said that whenever he would approach a similar bridge in this area, we have a bridge called the 210 Bridge. It's actually an interstate bridge. That when he would approach that in similar spans of distance between the supports, he said he always kept the tugs until he got past the bridge. Like he would never release the tugs, or what they call let them go. They say we let the tugs go. He said I would never let them go until I got south of the bridge. That way I knew I was safe. And if I ran into anything, it was running aground on the shore. It wasn't hitting an actual bridge with 4 lanes of traffic going on above it. Not saying that, and he wasn't saying either, that this captain or pilot did anything wrong. He was just more surprised. There's a number of things that could play into that. It could be super calm waters, and they thought that, assuming they would be under full power, that they could easily navigate through there with no problems. That's a point that it could have been that. I'm not so sold on that. I look at this port. You're looking at the same map I look at. This looks like an awfully small port. And if you noticed, if you guys will bear with me for a second, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Where is that video that I just had up? Here it is. Let me pull this one back up. I want to show you what I'm talking about. And we'll come back to the map after that so you can get a better feel for what I'm talking about here. So pulling this video of the actual crash again. Okay, notice, let me get back to the very beginning of it. Notice as it's coming out, it's under power. See the lights on it? Look at the trajectory that it's coming from. It's not coming directly from the left, but it's coming pretty much, excuse me, from the left. Boy, I wish I could pull that map up. Let me see if I can get to the point in the video where they actually have their own map. Nah, see, that's too far out. That's not going to show what I need it to show. When we come back to this other map, I want you to see what I'm talking about. Notice the position of this. It's coming pretty much due left right now, right? Let's play it and see it's under full power right now. Now, remember, when they left the port, supposedly, according to the Monica Crowley video that you just saw, they did issue a mayday, and they think that's why traffic was starting to slow on the bridge. Boom, it loses power right there. It's still coming pretty much from the left, and at this point, it's not aimed at that support structure that holds the bridge up. Notice it's starting to turn. It gets power again, and it starts to turn. Notice the smokestack. Again, pointed that out earlier. The black smoke coming from above that bridge. The vessel. That is where, and let me pause this for a second. If you look at that black smoke, that's where the pilot that I spoke to earlier on the phone today from down here said that's what's happening there is immediately when he got power, immediately he essentially hit the gas pedal. And I'm obviously paraphrasing, just trying to use our kind of terms. He said he is trying to reverse course right now. And by doing that, he's creating, and this is a side note, but it's worth mentioning about how the government screws everything up and can actually be a danger to people. He said that black smoke that you see right there, that is not common. I repeat, that is not common. That is, and please excuse my French, that is an oh shit moment that you're witnessing right there. the government will likely and would normally fine this ship, this vessel, for that black smoke coming out. That means that they are using way more horsepower than the government wants you to use, which means it's kicking up that soot and getting that black smoke out. That is a violation of regulations with our federal government, and that is a finable offense, and that is no small fine. That is a major fine. The federal government has encouraged every single ship out there to not put that out there, and it's not a slap on the wrist. It is a very heavy fine. So he said that is an indicator right away that this pilot just regained power and is trying to reverse everything and redivert the direction of that ship. I heard somebody say earlier, and so did the pilot that I spoke to, that somebody mentioned with that black smoke coming out, it appears that there was a fire on the ship. That's absolutely stupid. There's no fire on the ship. This is exhaust from the engine room pushing out as this thing tries to regain itself and right itself. And let me back up just a hair. You'll notice it's got power right here. So let's see. Let me get back to where it has lost its power. Here we go. Okay. So you see it has no power, no lights, and all of a sudden, boom, look at the smokestack. It's starting to billow out. Immediately when they got power, they immediately hit the quote gas pedal and tried to get this thing corrected. Now, what's weird is at this point, it looks like the back of the vessel is now swinging out, which is aiming this thing more at the support structure. Again, not accusing the guy of aiming this. Now look at it. It's like aimed right at the support structure, and then boom, they lose power again. So this thing is swinging. Look, you can look at this. Look, see how the back end is kicking around? Again, let me get back to that map. Let me pause this. Okay, look at the direction of the stern of the boat. See if I can get to it. And notice how the bow is turning to the right and the stern is pushing out to the left. Right here, I think you'll see it. Yep. Notice it's starting to swing out. And that bow is pulling closer in towards that. Let me see if I can kind of help point it out. Okay. Let me get in as close as I possibly can. That might be the closest I can get. Okay. This area right in here, right in front of the bow, is where it's about to strike that support structure. So hold on one second, guys. So that's a little bit surprising to me how this thing seemed to turn into that support structure. And then right here, obviously, you see it's damn near aimed right at it. But look, it tries to veer just to the left at the very last moment. See, it's moving just to the left. So I do believe this, that the pilot was trying to miss this structure. I mean, let's face it. I mean, the guy's on this thing. Does he really want to crash it into it? So any of the theories out there about this being terrorism, I do not believe that the actual vessel itself was piloted by somebody that was trying to hit this bridge. Now, how and why did it lose power? One of the things that the pilot and I talked about for a while when we were discussing this was the very fact that so many of these things are controlled by computers and electronics now. The steering, like right here when this thing lost power, there's no rudder movement. You cannot move that rudder. This is not a mechanical system. It may have hydraulics at the rudder, but electronics are sending that signal to the hydraulics to turn the rudder. So when this thing is losing power, it's like being in your vehicle and losing power where you have no brakes and you have no steering. This thing, when it has no power, is under complete, you have no control whatsoever. So the only time they had time to regain is when they put power back to it. And that's when, he hit the gas. So the electronic system, there's some older vessels that might still be out there that don't have quite as many dependencies on this electronic system. But this vessel looked like, boy, it was really, really in trouble whenever it had no power. So we got to assume that this is one. That's what the pilot told me also. This one here looks like it was pretty dependent on electrical power and that sending those signals to the rudder and to the engine compartment. Now, he did say that some engines can run on this because, again, they're not electronic engines, of course, but that sometimes you can still have power to your engines without having electricity. And by the way, he calls this a blackout. Like when you see this thing lose complete and total power, that's by the pilot's terms, that's a blackout. And he said that's not a good thing. That's like the worst case scenario anytime you're piloting a vessel like this. Let's see. What else did he tell? I'm trying to find some of the things that he passed on to me. Again, I talked a little bit about the possible overconfidence of not having tugs there. Look across the water line and you just don't see any tugs. There's no tugs pushing this. Look along the water line of the vessel itself, and you'll notice there's not a single tug aiming or guiding this thing through this span. Again, like this guy told me, he said, yeah, that's a pretty big span between those supports, but he said, doesn't matter. You know, you're still on a vessel that's literally floating on top of water. Anything can happen. Like this, anything can happen. He said he would have never let his tugs go without knowing he was past this bridge. And again, if you look at, we'll go back to it in a second, the map of the harbor itself, had he made it past this bridge, he would have been in pretty good, not open waters, but had a clear shot to open waters before colliding with this bridge. So let me pull the map back up again, and we'll look at that one quick second here. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, once you got past the bridge down here at the bottom where you see the E, you see Fort Carroll right there. You don't have a whole lot else to go out of with that the port to the right over there until you're getting out into safer water and not a whole lot of harbor type traffic. And it's certainly not near as tight. And you don't see any other bridges going across the waterway. So there's not that danger of colliding with something like that. So let's see, what else the things that I want to point out. Let's be honest about this. We've been listening to the FBI since the end of last year talk about terror warnings. We've had Chinese balloons flying over. The Chinese have proven they're no friends of ours. We've had threats of things happening to our electrical grids. Again, the FBI recently came out with more of the talk of threats. We have the massive terror attack that happened in Russia over the weekend. We've got little things that are unexplained popping off left and right. I think that our government and the media even, but the media still, if it bleeds, it leads. They still like that. So I don't think the media will cover up murder quite so fast. I'm not saying they won't, because Epstein did not kill himself. But nevertheless, I think the media, if they had a chance to report on it being a terror issue, that's a headline grabber. I think the federal government and everybody else, CIA, those involved, would very likely, if this were a terror attack, if there was a cyber attack where the electronics on this system were hacked, I do believe they would cover it up. They do not want to panic people. This is in Baltimore, Maryland. This is right near the Capitol. It's on the East Coast, super busy area. This is a super busy port, which, by the way, is completely shut down right now. Traffic in or out. So there's a lot that the powers that be, let's just call them that, have to gain by us not thinking that this was an attack of some sort. Again, I'm going to give you my opinion. I don't think that the pilot drove this thing into that support structure, but I'm not saying that there wasn't something that caused this power outage. And also, if you look at it this way, how weird is it? And just let's go back to the video if y'all don't mind. How weird is it that we are sitting here looking at a vessel that lost power and managed to regain power, and then lose power, regain power, lose power? I mean, what did they have, a loose wire? Do you follow what I'm saying? That's not what it was. This was not contacts on a battery that broke loose. That is not what this was. We know that. There are way too many fail-safe things built into airplanes, ships, trains. It's not like some old beat up Bonneville that was sitting in somebody's yard for the last 35 years that had a bad battery or alternator and they lost power on the road. You follow what I'm saying? That's not what happened. This was not a loose wire that made this entire vessel lose power. So this vessel loses power, regains power, loses power, regains power, loses power, regains power. They knew when they left the port. Again, that's why I say this thing must have been close to the bridge whenever it left, because they had already radioed that they did not have full control of the vessel at that point. So I have a lot of questions on, again, guys, it's not a jiggly wire. It wasn't somebody back there going, hey, we got it back. What? Lost it again. No, we got it back. Oh, shit, we lost it again. No, wait, we got it. That's not what happened. That's not what happened with this thing. This thing lost power, and this, to me, is more indicative of somebody hacking into this system, somebody overriding it, and the hack getting back, and the hackers overriding the override. Something doesn't make sense right here. This is a very strange way that this did this. If you had a backup battery system or a backup power system, that backup battery system or power system will not have failed that quickly and right off the bat. What are you, all of a sudden, you're not testing your stuff now? Again, these are people who literally travel across the entire world. They're not crossing their fingers when they have a backup battery supply. They're not crossing their fingers that everything's going to work when they're out in the middle of the freaking ocean. There are people who are managing this thing, making sure things work. It's a lot more likely that there were computer-related problems than that there were mechanical-related problems that caused it to lose gain, right? You follow what I'm saying? Mechanically, it's either broke or it's not broke in many cases. In many cases, I'm not saying all. I don't think this was a mechanical issue. I honestly don't. I think this was more software-related. Again, that is simply my thought. I think that I'm not saying any one particular country, but let me give you an example. The Chinese did not float a balloon. In fact, it's been 2 now. They did not float a balloon across our entire country because they couldn't wait to look at the pictures of all the beautiful scenery. That's not why they did it. They did it for other reasons. We did nothing about it. We've opened the door for terror attacks, and we quite literally have an open door south of the border. So anything can happen. Anything can happen. And this vessel, by the way, is a Singapore-owned vessel. So this thing here, is going in and out of ports, not just to ports in different areas that are probably not as secure as some of ours, but also going in and out of ports to countries of people who don't really like us. You follow what I'm saying? It's very likely something could have been planted on this thing. A bug, so to speak, could have been planted on this thing. There are way too many hands in the cookie jar at this point for me to believe that it was a jiggly wire that caused this thing to lose power and plow into a freaking bridge. Now, with that being said, it would have to be pretty dang, you have to be pretty good at making this thing lose power when it lost power. It's very possible that if this was some kind of nefarious act, that they just got lucky that it hit the bridge. Do you follow what I'm saying? Because there's no way they timed it like this. There ain't no way. I'm not that much of a person that believes in this deep of a conspiracy to think that this vessel, with everybody on board not being a bad guy, like nothing but good guys on board, and they can manage to make this thing lose power at just the right times to make it plow into a bridge so the bridge collapses. No, I don't. I think it hitting the bridge might be the actual coincidence. I don't think it losing power is the coincidence. boy, if you can plan to make it something lose power and make it plow into a bridge like that, then we're going to have way bigger problems on our hands, right? If they can control that kind of stuff. However, a lot of weird stuff, and it doesn't seem to be any real answers. If you notice where this thing hit the vessel, where the bridge fell across it, fell across the front of it on the bow end of it, and it looks like it. You can tell at this picture right here, especially that most of the damage. I'm gonna see if I can back it, pull it to where. Well, this is actually a good shot right here. If you notice, way at the front of the vessel is where this thing got hit. So the engine room and everything else is going to be further towards the back. So I'm not sure if these guys have black boxes. I would like to think that they probably do, just because of international waterways and probably the stupid regulations that our country probably imposes on these folks. So there's got to be some kind of a black box that shows all of the readings of the engine room, the rudder, all kinds of things like that. So my guess is, because this thing didn't sink or didn't burn, that everything is going to be recoverable. If they tell us that it's not recoverable, then you know something is definitely not right. But nevertheless, guys, this is a strange situation. I think that based on all the warnings that we keep seeing, that to just dismiss this, I almost think we're being, if we dismiss this as whoopsie daisy, I think we're being irresponsible with our own security. I think that we should be asking questions until we've exhausted every single possible scenario. And then every one of us is convinced that this was just a weird turn of events and a massive tragedy that happened. But we're going to see the results of this for a very long time. I saw that the Domino sugar plant actually operates right there in the Baltimore harbor. Domino sugar plant provides a lot of sugar across the country. So you're going to start seeing supply chain issues there. This is a very popular port coming and going from the United States. So you're going to start to see traffic get diverted into other areas. This being a shortcut to probably likely different places on the East Coast. Now they're going to have to go to other ports because they're not going to be able to work here. I mean, because they're going to have this port shut down for a very long time. I'd be curious to know how quickly and how soon they're actually able to clear this bridge from crossing the port, because again, it's literally closing off 99% of the port. The rest of the port is useless right now. There's no shortcut. This is it. This is how you come and go out of that area. So we're going to start seeing supply chain issues at some point, because these other vessels are going to have to go to other ports and offload their goods or collect their goods and then go elsewhere. So this will likely be another excuse. Look for the Biden administration heading into the election to blame increasing inflation. Now this gives them a chance to actually go, oh, thank God, we can actually let inflation pick back up again. And it's not our fault now. We just blame it on the bridge collapse. So look for them to start blaming everything now on the bridge collapse, because, I mean, nothing they could do about it. And again, I want to repeat that this is Baltimore. This is an area that's heavy Democrat. Joe Biden and Buttigieg will be here probably within days. And they waited. Buttigieg waited, was it months before he went to Palestine, which is a red area. And Joe Biden, it took him a year to go to that red area, for an area where people are still suffering as a result of them unnecessarily burning the chemicals from those rail cars. Let's not forget, guys, they've come out recently and said that it was not necessary for them to have set all the stuff that they spilled out from those rail cars ablaze, which created that toxic cloud that is destroying the land, the streams, and the people, their health in that area in Palestine. Let's not forget about that. So again, guys, this is an odd turn of events. I would really like to think that when all the dust settles, that they come to the conclusion that this was all just simply a bad thing that happened, and we're going to pick the pieces up and we're going to recover. And, this is something that we're going to get beyond, and, we're going to find that nothing bad happened. I really hope we get to that point, and I hope that is in fact the case. Do I have confidence that is going to be the case? No, I don't. I honestly don't. Will we ever find out? Nope. we're not going to find anything out about this. We're never going to hear the actual facts of this. People wonder why folks go to these other websites on the dark web or wherever else. It's because we want to know the truth. And I say we, I don't mean me necessarily, but people want to know the truth because they know that there's not a single outlet that you can name that we recognize that is going to give you the truth of what really happened right here. Guys, I'm going to close the live stream here in a second. I really would love for you guys, if you don't mind, to come back after I've closed the live stream and give me your thoughts in the comment section below once the video is out there, because I would love to know what you guys think. I know that there's a lot of professionals out there that watch my channel that probably have a lot better idea of what's going on than what I do, especially with the maritime type stuff. I'd be curious to know what you guys think, what you see that we didn't see, or that I didn't see. Some of the things that might be kind of interesting that simply looking at the video I didn't catch. And is there more information coming out? I mean, obviously we're going to be hearing about this for days and days and days. This story ain't going away. The facts on it might go away, but the story's not going away because this is a massive deal. Like I was saying earlier, guys, look at everything to the upper left-hand corner of more in this area. All this port, this entire port is shut down. So nothing's coming or going anymore because this bridge has everything cut off from the exterior of the port and the open seas and the open waterways. So again, guys, very, very odd turn of events. I hope that I'm wrong about some of this. Like Monica Crowley said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar and sometimes it's not. You know, sometimes somebody lights the wrong end of the cigar, even though it is just a cigar. Somebody's going to be in a lot of trouble over this, because if they come, they're looking for a scapegoat right now. This has to be put on somebody. If you hear that they don't put this on somebody, then you know it's an inside job. I'm sorry, guys. This has to go on to somebody. You have to blame somebody. Somebody is either at fault here or a thing is at fault. Like if they can find the wire and go, this was it. This is the wire. This is the one that did it. You got to show me something. You can't dismiss this and go, we don't know what happened. Because again, I have to repeat this. The vessel didn't sink and the vessel didn't burn. Everything they need is still sitting right there. So you can't tell me you don't have anything and you can't come to the right conclusion. You have the people and you have the vessel all involved. There's an answer somewhere. And if we don't hear it, we kind of know the answer at that point, right? Again, guys, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I know you have better things to do. I would appreciate it once this video is complete, because it's a live stream right now as you're watching it. If you guys could go back into the comment section and give me your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm very curious what you guys have seen, what you think, what you know, other possible areas that you've seen information that maybe I haven't looked and there's better information out there. Anything like that is interesting to me, guys. So thanks again. I'm going to end the live stream. Appreciate you guys. We will talk very, very soon about this again.